Okay, we'll go dark again on the Mandela effect. Alright, so now I just wanted to use an example to explain to you what I believe is the explanation behind this effect. I got an interesting comment on my last video from a gentleman who believed that we actually are in a simulated earth and we're going through a vessel. I'm thinking to myself, that's close. I mean, it's very close to what I think is going on. I'll give you an example. Now, if you take a schizophrenic's mind, yeah, and just look at what's happening there. Now, a schizophrenic will tell you, well, half of them will tell you that we can see into people's minds. The other half will tell you that their minds are being seen into. Yeah, now let's take that half, the latter. Now, when a schizophrenic tells you that, okay, somebody's viewing my mind, somebody's seeing into my mind, yeah, um, and then you have to look at that and say, hold on a minute. In terms of what the Mandela effect is, I told you you need a separate reality, yeah, in order to influence this reality. And each person's consciousness is like a separate reality. Think about it. What you see in your mind is an interpretation of what is out here. Yeah. So what you see in your mind, yeah, uh, and then the interface, which is your skull and skin, and then what's out here, what's actually real. You all know that you got blind spots, so you're not really seeing everything that's out here. What's in your blind spot, you just make it up. Your mind makes up stuff, it approximates what's there. Yeah. So if a schizophrenic says people are seeing into my mind, now the people behind the Mandela effect would use schizophrenics in that way. Yeah. If you look at all the great prophets and you look at the definition of schizophrenia, most of them were Moses, Jesus. All these were people who had paranoid schizophrenia, right? So if you look at it and you define it like from fundamental principles, so when you have schizophrenics out there in the world and the people behind the Mandela effect use them as a separate reality in order to influence this reality. Now, when you have a schizophrenic's brain, and let's say you have 100 people in the real world watching in his consciousness, yeah, where they're watching in that schizophrenic's consciousness, yeah, they can then incept an idea, yeah, in his consciousness, for example, during sleep, yeah, and then they can even incept that milk has the color of green. So then he starts to see that in his mind, yeah, as being true, and then 100 people start seeing in his mind and realize it as being true there, yeah, and then they come out of his mind, and then somehow it starts to have a bearing on the real world. Yeah, so I don't know how it fully works, but in terms of looking for simulations or vessels, that's just people's consciousness we're dealing with there. Now, obviously, on a global scale, is there someone of whom it can be said that what we're seeing as reality is his dream? Yeah, where in him, in terms of that vessel, um, how did that guy put it? Yeah, he said that we're we're traveling through galaxies apparently. Yeah, in a simulated Earth. Now, your consciousness is a simulation, but the real world isn't. But because of entanglements, yeah, whenever your consciousness interacts with the real world, it changes it. Yeah. Now, when you look at the diffraction, yeah, when your consciousness engages with the mechanism of diffraction, it changes it and it stops happening. So your consciousness is a simulated world. Yeah, so you don't need to look for, unless you're saying that we are in someone's dream, yeah, which is a simulated world, and as he's about to wake up, we kind of, well, this world has to end, and the mechanisms that lead to the end of the universe start to happen. Just as a human being wakes up, his dream evaporates into nothing, yeah, but the mechanism of that evaporation, yeah, obviously takes longer to realize for those who are the characters in the dream. Yeah, so I just wanted you to bear in mind that if you look at the way schizophrenics see the world, and if what they're saying is true, then people can use schizophrenics, yeah, to incept ideas that they can then use to change fact, artifact, and detail in the real world. I don't know the full mechanism because I'm not one of those people, but in terms of simulated earths and vessels, you don't need to look farther than people's consciousness. Yeah, that's a simulation right there. Now, if those simulations are being used to change what's real, we don't need to look far. So I do agree with that gentleman that commented on my videos, but I also disagree. I don't think it's some mystery, mysterious vessel that's beyond Earth. I think it's us. We are being manipulated, but there's not just one simulated Earth. There's 7 billion consciousnesses, 7 billion Earths being simulated every moment.